John Lynch on KNBR just said, I felt we were close in some discussions, and then the decision was made to have surgery, and it brought things to a screeching halt. He's talking trade discussions. We either want to have Jimmy playing for us, which we're all right with, or we want to get the value.
So we're all right with, not like we have to have him, right?
If he right, we don't have to have him, but at some point, are we going to have to believe him when he says we're all right with Jimmy just staying on our roster all year long?
Well, he's telling the truth.
Well, I know. I think people, it's May now, just assume like, it's just trade tactics. It's just trying to leverage, let people know if they want Jimmy, they got to trade for him. Then he's not going to get cut, so you better trade for him. But there's not a lot of market because it's multiple. There's not multiple teams bidding here.
Let's just say this, guy. This is a big. I'm not sure their last veteran OT, the mandatory camp, which is usually the last one, and Kyle usually lets everyone leave by like Thursday, which is I would guess maybe the second week of June. So they got, let's give them 45 days of like Kyle and the team minus Debo and probably Bosa too. And Trent Williams, I would give 50-50 chance of being here. I could see him being wherever in the South hanging out. Trey Lance better have a fucking good OTA guy. There better not be like, Trey's accuracy is all over the place. There's some fumbled snaps. Oh, this and that. It's a big 45 days for the old young gunslinger guy. There's no, it's been a little rocky out there for the offense, and Kyle is more animated than usual. I would say that's a good sign for Jimmy, keeping that $27 million and getting a chance to be the starting quarterback. I'll promise you that. Right. If this does not go well, and it'll be hard to tell from our vantage point. I think during the voluntary OTAs, one practice is open a week. So if it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they get to pick one. And then the mandatory, they have to be all open to the media. So let's just say it's a total of 8 media practices that they're able to view, the 3 mandatories, and then maybe even less, might be 6 or 5. If in those 4 of those 5 look pretty ugly, whether fair or not, because they're going to have a lot of other practices that no one are seeing, the vibe on the interweb, and just from what you and I potentially see, could get weird.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, right now, this second, if we pinned Kyle Shanahan in a corner and was like, hey, man, who's a better – you had to win one game today, Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, who are you rolling with?
You say Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, right now.
What would his answer be? So until you have actually jumped out of the airplane with the parachute on your back, you haven't skydived.
I do think it. If you ask him that, though, Saturday night, when he said he ended the press conference, he's like, the highlight of this night before I go celebrate is not having to watch college football until February next year. I think if you and me and him were having some double Tito's and we're just bullshitting, he'd say, honestly, ask me in 45 days. And I might feel a little different.
Well, so this is where a little pressure comes in. I also think if you were going to nitpick that scenario I gave you.
Stretch for Trey Lance.
Now, if you're going to nitpick that scenario I gave you, you'd say, well, hold on. It's all relative to could he do 80% of what Jimmy can do because you're doing this for the future, right? It's not necessarily they don't have to win one game tomorrow. He's got to get through a season and go to the playoffs and set Trey Lance up to be his quarterback for the next decade plus, right? That's really what the task is here. It's not win a game tomorrow. So it's a little bit unfair in that way. But I say it just to illustrate the point that what you're saying, I think, is fair. Like, there is a baseline that Trey's got to give him. I don't think Trey Lance has to show Kyle Shanahan that he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He just has to inspire Kyle Shanahan to believe that soon he can be more valuable to the team than Jimmy Garoppolo. And for now, he can give him like 80% of the stuff Jimmy gives him because they'll invest for the future when he's 130% of Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think an underrated part for Kyle to really go all in on this situation, and I've seen, you alerted me to this during the Super Bowl when Matt Ryan talked about Kyle and the play calls. And I've heard Matt Ryan now over the years, and he said it to Pat McAfee the other day about this. He said that Kyle transition was very, very difficult, not just because of the verbiage, but just what he expected mentally. And when you say Matt's a pretty, like, the control of the offense, is Trey doing like rattling off these playbooks and then being able to audible? You could argue that's more important than me and you standing there on the sideline and him overthrowing Ayuk. If Kyle goes, you made the right call, you made the right audible, you're going to make that throw 60% of the time. I'm good with it. Or is it like you make a sweet throw and Kyle's actually thinking, well, you fucked up the read, you fucked up the audible, that was the wrong look. This would have been a problem against the Packers.
Yeah.
And that's the type of stuff that it's where the coaches get, like you and I on the sideline just can't see.
But that's also when somebody says to him, Kyle, you know what? Like the only way for him to get better is for all that stuff to happen in a real game.
I mean, I bet Matt Ryan would say, well, part of it is we got to play through it, right?
Now, the other part of it is even if you commit to that, if Jimmy Garoppolo is just standing there, then there's pressure on him once the season starts.
My take is...
Here's the other thing, by the way, I would say, like being a successful NFL quarterback means dealing with pressure. It's going to be part of the deal.
I would say, though, they usually cook the books for a young guy. Like you usually just give it to Herbert, you give it to Mahomes, you gave it to Josh Allen, you got Flacco out of there for Lamar. I mean, eventually you just got to let the guy dive into the deep end and just see what happens with your whole team. I mean, it's just part of the investment you made, right? Mac Jones, they cut Cam Newton. I do think it'd be a pretty tricky situation to navigate with Jimmy, even if somehow you make him the backup, because the moment you're 1-2 and it's like Trey's struggling. Not even just the fans. Like, should we go to Jimmy? Kyle's thinking that.
That's why next week, by the way, Trey turns 22 on May 9th. So soon, next week. It's why next
comparing Trey Lance to Kenny Pickett, right? I mean, Kenny Pickett's known as a
I think
Mac Jones.
I think that point was just he's young.
I hear you, but I'm just Trey Lance is in his category with like Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, like very, very talented guys that have physical characteristics, unlike the crew this year, and unlike unlike a lot of guys. Hell, Sam Darnold has a weak arm. These guys got some physical attributes that scouts salivate over. Now it's can the coaches mold.
Yeah. Does he have it? That's why next Thursday is a big day too. Schedule release. When do you play early? When do you play them? Right? That matters to Trey Lance, or for Trey Lance. May not matter to Trey Lance, but it matters for Trey Lance.